In the mid-19th century, the Rockefeller family had a bad reputation. They relied on secret railroad rebates, price wars, and hostile takeovers, nearly crushing the entire American oil industry. To many Americans, the Rockefellers were predators dressed in suits. This raises an obvious question. Why the Rockefeller family become the most powerful families in America? Why can they still influence the entire world even in 2026? Simple. The Rockefeller family's true dominion extended far beyond oil. They built an empire that reached from energy and industry to institutions, finance, and global networks. It all began with John D. Rockefeller. In 1839, John D. Rockefeller born into a modest family in Richford, New York. His dad, William Rockefeller, was a con artist nicknamed Devil Bill, a traveling salesman who made a living selling fake cancer cures. His mom, Eliza Davison, she was a devout Baptist, hardworking, frugal, and extremely disciplined. In this environment, John inherited his dad's sharp business instincts and his mom's self-discipline and disdain for waste. Other child played and collected bird eggs. John was already trying to turn bird eggs into cash. At 12, John did something that shocked everyone. "Sir, I will lend you $50. 1 year later, you need to pay me $53.5 with interest." When the neighbor returned the $53.5 to him, at that moment, John realized those who control capital hold the power to grow wealth effortlessly. This realization later transformed the America. In 1850, John got his first job as a bookkeeper. Many think the work boring. He loved it. In 38 letters to his son, he explained that the job taught him how to maximize the value of every penny. Only by mastering the output of each cent could he eventually control a business empire. In 1859, John, Maurice Clark, and George Gartner established a company. The company, Clark and Gardner, trading in commodities like grain, hay, and meat. When the Civil War broke out, driving grain prices ever higher due to the Army's immense demand for war supplies, John made his first fortune supplying the military. The 27th of August, 1859, Edwin Drake struck the first commercial oil well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. The oil boom exploded many people into the industry. Everyone believed drilling oil was the path to wealth, but John think differently. He think the real money was in refining. Everyone was digging the oil, and prices were all over the place. But no matter who drilled it, oil had to pass through a refinery to become money. Armed with a clear understanding of the market and the capital he had accumulated during the Civil War, John entered the refining business in 1863, and thus began the rise of America's most powerful capital dynasty. John was almost pathologically frugal, while others discarded oil byproducts. He continued processing them into lubricants, paraffin, and chemical materials. Anything that could be sold for profit was never wasted. His refinery costs fell, orders grew, and his Cleveland operation became dominant. However, a crisis emerged. Oil production surged, prices plunged, and transportation costs were ridiculous. John realized that in 19th century America, the key to wealth wasn't oil, it was railroads. No matter who controlled transport controlled the market. In 1870, he formally established Standard Oil and launched the famous South Improvement Company plan. Secretly negotiating with railroad tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt, John asked for, "My orders are large and steady, filling your cars. So, I want the lowest price." Vanderbilt agreed. But the real scary part isn't the discounts, it's the kickbacks. For every barrel of oil transported by competitors, the railroad secretly returned part of the fee to Standard Oil. Other refineries might pay $10 to ship a barrel of oil, but Standard Oil only paid $6. Under this unfair pricing, the whole industry basically collapsed, and a ton of small refineries went bankrupt. Meanwhile, John was waging a price war while snapping up refineries left and right. If someone was willing to sell, he bought them. If not, he had drove them into bankruptcy. In 6 weeks, Standard Oil acquired 22 of Cleveland's 26 refineries. By then, Standard Oil almost fully controlled Cleveland's refineries. People called it the Cleveland Massacre. From then on, the nightmare of the American oil industry began. Standard Oil replicated this model nationwide. Railroads, storage, pipelines, and sales all increasingly came under Rockefeller control. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled 90% of the country's refining capacity. The entire supply chain was essentially in Rockefeller's hands. Standard Oil became so powerful it was no longer seen as a mere company. People began to use a new term to describe it: trust. And the Rockefeller family thus gained unlimited wealth. When Standard Oil was at its peak, a young woman from Titusville, Ida Tarbell, targeted John. Her dad's refinery had been destroyed by Standard Oil, and she had witnessed countless families ruined by the monopoly. Growing up in this environment, she harbored deep hatred for the Rockefellers. In 1902, Tarbell published a 19-part series in McClure's magazine, The History of the Standard Oil Company, exposing John's secret deals, railroad rebates, and monopolistic tactics. Her meticulous reporting unveiled the nature of monopoly to the public. Outrage exploded. The Rockefeller family was depicted as a giant octopus wrapping its tentacles around Congress, railroads, courts, and the financial system. John's empire and board faced immense pressure. The government noticed and acted. In 1906, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Standard Oil under the Sherman Antitrust Act. In 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. It had to be broken up into 34 companies. Everyone think John was done for, but the result was exactly the opposite. The government broke up his company into 34 parts. It never confiscated his shares. These spun-off companies, later industry giants such as ExxonMobil and Chevron, benefited from the explosive rise of the automobile age, and their stock prices surged wildly. John's wealth tripled as a result. He became the first billionaire in human history. Importantly, this breakup marked a true evolution for the Rockefeller family. Rockefeller family's wealth was now unimaginable, yet in the public eye, they remained nouveau riche, far from being recognized as one of America's most powerful dynasties. The next phase was the true ascent. The Rockefellers shifted from controlling industries to controlling rules. John D. Rockefeller Jr., John D. Rockefeller's son, Jr., made this possible. In 1914, the Ludlow Massacre broke out. A massive strike erupted in the Colorado mining camps, triggering bloody clashes. Flames engulfed the miners' settlement, leaving women and children dead. The whole nation was outraged. The media pointed all fingers straight at the Rockefeller family. Public opinion nearly crushed the Rockefellers completely. Unlike his dad, Jr. refused to stay silent. He knew that cold indifference would destroy the family. To save them, he did something unprecedented. He donned no suit, entered the mines, shook hands with workers, spoke to their families, and participated in labor events. For the first time in U.S. history, a super wealthy tycoon actively managed his public image. Even greater changes followed. Jr. invested millions in education, healthcare, and historic preservation. In 1928, he leased prime Manhattan land for a new Metropolitan Opera House to showcase the family's influence. Even during the 1929 stock market crash and Great Depression, he pushed forward with Rockefeller Center, personally guaranteeing loans and investing over $250 million, creating jobs for thousands. For the first time, Americans began to see the Rockefellers as part of the order, not just predators. After the Depression, Jr. expanded professionalized philanthropy, founding the Rockefeller Foundation, initially funding schools, hospitals, and universities. He soon realized that systemic control extended influence far beyond mere donations. By funding institutions willing to reform and letting outdated ones fail, the foundation reshaped medicine, universities, public health, and research. Rules were now under Rockefeller control. By World War II, the family donated Manhattan's most valuable land for the United Nations headquarters. From then on, the Rockefeller family became embedded in the U.S.-led international order through healthcare, education, international organizations, and finance. The foundation's influence penetrated core modern institutions. If John controlled energy, Jr. controlled rules. Next came David Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, Jr.'s youngest son, who extended the family's reach into global capital. After WW2, he joined Chase Manhattan Bank after the 1950s. More and more countries needed dollar loans. If they wanted dollars, they had to join the New York banking system. And Chase Manhattan Bank was one of its most critical gateways. Then a strange scene began to unfold. Heads of state, finance ministers, and top central bank officials started showing up at Chase Bank constantly. At that time, David Rockefeller was CEO of Chase Manhattan Bank, and he traveled nonstop around the world. The Soviet Union, the Middle East, Europe, Latin America, the people he met were either presidents or those who controlled their nation's economy. In 1969, David Rockefeller became chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank. After, he pushed the bank to expand its lending operations across the world, especially in developing countries. At first, it seemed like ordinary banking business. But soon, the situation began to change. Because when a country's debt grows larger and larger, a bank's influence no longer stops at the economy. It can begin to shape the country's future decisions. To continue receiving dollar loans, many countries were forced to open their markets, adjust their policies, and accept financial rules shaped by the United States. Debt gradually became a new form of influence. The 1970s oil crisis magnified this influence. Petrodollars flowed back to New York and were relent worldwide. A new cycle emerged: oil, dollars, banks, debt, global capital. Who controlled dollars controlled global capital. In 1973, David founded the Trilateral Commission. He gathered top elites from North America, Europe, and Japan to negotiate the direction of the global economy. Many major decisions were first formed within these elite circles, and then slowly shaped the whole world. The Rockefeller family began to influence the consensus among global elites. And so, the Rockefellers' three transformations were complete. John D. Rockefeller controlled energy. John D. Rockefeller Jr. set the rules. David Rockefeller stepped into the core of global capital. But building power was only half the challenge. The big challenge was preserving it across generations. That was where the Rockefeller Family Trust played a crucial role. By protecting the principal and separating wealth from risk, it ensured that future generations could benefit from the fortune without destroying it. Combined with strict internal education on discipline and reputation, the Rockefeller name became not just a symbol of wealth, but of responsibility. Many dynasties fail within 3 generations. The Rockefellers endured. This was how the Rockefellers evolved from an oil dynasty into one of America's most influential families. If you found this story interesting, subscribe, and share. More stories about the people and empires that shaped our world are coming soon.